So recently I did a video talking about flight ratings for beginners, and it kind of got me to thinking about flight ratings in general, especially flight ratings that match other manufacturers' flight ratings. So basically today on this episode of Out of Bounds, we're going to be talking about how I think that flight ratings on disc shouldn't be the manufacturer's choice. It should be the PDGA's choice, and how flight ratings really only benefit the manufacturer in some cases. So stay tuned. So flight ratings. Take your most popular disc mold in all of disc golf, say the Destroyer. Destroyer is a 12, 5, -1, 3. Now, there are plenty of other companies that have tried to emulate that disc throughout the history of disc golf, ever since that disc has ever came to be, and a lot of came close. Everybody kind of has their Destroyer type disc, but some of them actually emulate those numbers exactly, and I don't think that that's necessarily 100% accurate to be able to use those exact numbers. For instance, you got the DD has the Trespass. Some say the Raider is. I've seen the Raiders that show the same numbers before. I don't know that it is, but I've seen that. Discmania has the DD3. Even Legacy has the Outlaw. So everybody has a disc that's got the same exact flight numbers, and there are plenty of discs out there, not just that one, not just calling out those, that have same numbers exactly as other discs. You know, people are trying to emulate the Zone out there. All the discs that are the greatest disc of all time, like the P2 is one of the greatest discs made of all time. Putters, like there's just the Firebird. There's just so many discs out there trying to be duplicated, and I think some of them take it too far to use the exact flight rating numbers, which I don't think is fair. I think the PDGA needs to step in, same way NASCAR does things with their engines. Like they have to go in and undergo an inspection. I think this is before and after, or at least after, to make sure that they're not using anything that's illegal. Not to say that anything anybody's doing in disc golf is illegal, but just saying that the flight rating should be decided by the PDGA. And what are your thoughts on should before a tournament begins, should players' discs be inspected for imperfections or anything that will give them an advantage? Because I'm on this side of the fence that kind of believes that it's not hard to believe, it's not too far-fetched to say, I should say, that the top pros for those manufacturers, they're probably getting the better lot of all of those discs. I don't really think that I'm wrong in saying that the Eagle McMahons and the Simon Zotts, they're getting the best runs of all those discs that other people aren't getting. That I don't think that I'm wrong in saying that at all. Is it unfair? Absolutely it's unfair. I totally think it's unfair that they're getting, especially when there's an early release or something that other people don't have. I think that's totally unfair. I think if there's a disc that hasn't been released by a company yet for people to purchase, those pros should not be allowed to throw that disc. I think that's unfair, total advantage, albeit a small advantage. I don't think that it should happen at all, period, ever. I don't think every tournament should be like that, where they inspect the disc, whatever. I think this is just things that I'm thinking. But when it's a national tour and there's lots of money on the line, why would you not want it to be fair? I mean, surely there's some people out there that are doing things that they shouldn't do with disc and altering them in some way. I'm sure that there's people that have done that before. It's not too far-fetched to say. So this is how the PDGA should do it. They should get blank copies of each disc that they're trying to approve of, make sure that it falls within the correct measurements within PDGA rules, but then be able to discern a flight rating based on that disc. Not let the manufacturer decide it, because you're basically leaving up to them to say, all right, we want to create a disc like a Destroyer, so we're going to use this disc. It kind of is close to it, so we're going to put the same numbers on it to kind of compete with the Destroyer, so that people will think, okay, well, this is their Destroyer version of a disc, instead of just having their own actual flight ratings that actually are close enough, but not exactly the same. I mean, I don't know how all that would work, but I think that there should be a fair way to do all of that stuff, instead of just letting them decide this is what our flight ratings are because we want to match this with this, or we want to be like a zone. So this is our version of the zone. So our numbers exactly match it. Like, it's a little misleading because we all know flight numbers are not 100% accurate. Period, across the board, they're not 100% accurate. Especially with the destroyer. Let's face it, the destroyer is one of the most mocked discs in the world, and it's also one of the most inaccurate to find. If you can find 2 destroyers that are exactly the same in the same place, good luck, because that doesn't happen. It's just the most inconsistent disc that I've ever came across in my entire time playing disc golf. It's one of the greatest discs, but it's also the most inconsistent to find multiples that are exactly the same. So, and also there was talk about drug testing in the PDGA, the tournaments or whatever. Talk about drug testing. Like, I don't think that is necessarily a thing that we need to be concerned about, but I think cheating is something that could be. You can alter a disc much easier than you can alter your own body and get away with it much easier. I don't think I've never had anybody look at my disc and be like, hey, wait a minute, this is not fair. There was a disc actually once, I think it was called a Ninja. Was it Legacy that made the Ninja, or Gateway that made the Ninja? I don't know what it was, but it was a disc. It's not PDGA approved, but that thing was so sharp. I had one and it was so much fun to throw. That thing went forever. It just glided forever. So I could see why it would have been PDGA illegal. So who's to say people aren't cheating these days? I think that's where we need to aim at, not about drug testing. And also, when I'm talking about accuracy and making discs, like, who makes the most consistent molds in disc golf? My opinion is probably going to lean towards Latitude or Dynamic, because I think in my history that I've thrown them, I've never seen any two that looked different nor flew different. Most inconsistent, I mean, it's not a bad thing to say that Innova has the most inconsistent molds as far as like how they fly, but because they have some of the greatest discs ever made, probably one of the best disc golf companies ever made. But let's be honest, there's a bit of inconsistency in their flight patterns with some things. But basically what I'm saying is the moral of the story is flight ratings don't mean that much. It can mean certain companies are better at it than others, but they're never accurate. Certain people are, especially when it comes to skill levels, it's going to affect you a lot differently. So you kind of have to just play with different things, different speeds and different flight ratings and all that stuff. But I do think that there needs to be more consistency in the numbers chosen. I don't think these companies are exactly where they need to be on choosing them. Anybody can slap any number on a disc and say it's a speed 12 when really we all feel like, all right, this is a speed 9 disc. Why is this even close to this or something like that? Just as an example, but there are plenty of discs out there that we're all like, I mean, come on, the Zone is not a putter. Why is the Zone a putter? Nobody uses it. There probably are people that use it for a putter, but I don't. Just like I don't use a bow bob for a putter. Like, those kind of discs are just kind of like, come on, guys. We know those are not putters. We know it. They might come in handy when on certain conditions for putting, but by that standard, any of my drivers can be putters based on a certain condition. That's all I'm saying. Not every number is accurate. Don't pretend that it is, because it's not.